Conversations with Azu Ishekwele.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Azu. And for the first time in 2 weeks, we are having him live and direct. I did promise I was going to do a While You Were Away Chronicles, but that one will not fly this week. Maybe I might just do it on social media. You might just need to look out for that. But then today we are having a conversation about who does America listen to. I've got the man as usual, Azu with us in the building. Hello, sir. Welcome.
How are you, Azuka and Julius? Nice to be back in the studio. Thank you.
You're welcome back.
Welcome back. I would have said, how are you? But it's obvious. The answer is very obvious.
Okay.
Hello, Julius. How have you been?
Very well, thank you.
Are you on band A or I should mind my business?
He's on band 8.
I'm on band A plus.
The Lord is your strength. Okay, so this week's column was exceptionally, I would say it was a learning curve for me because I got to find out a lot of things about Native America and all of that. But this particular caption, who does America listen to, kind of like puts America in the I would say, the first thing I did was I interpreted it as, is America not a good?
Well, I guess that in a way you might say that superpowers tend to have that toga, if you like, of these, that the world is divided between, as they say, between the weak and the strong. And the world, some people think it's a jungle, and where might rather than right prevails. So, yeah, I'm sure that there are some people who might agree or who might say that yes, America is a bully in a way, but bully for what cause and for what purpose? So I think in the context of what is going on in the Middle East, which is the context in which we are discussing the US, there are people who will be very disappointed, not a few who will be very disappointed at how the US has conducted itself so far in what is happening in Gaza.
I think the dilemma of the Middle East is that whatever happens in America doesn't seem to have a difference. Whether it's a Republican or a Democratic president, America will always veto United Nations resolutions in favor of Israel. Do you think the other world powers who also have veto power in the Security Council, do they care about what is actually happening in the Middle East?
Yes, they care. They care for many reasons. So they ought to care, but it's not whether they care, it's whether how much of this care has been demonstrated in their actions. Because you can say you care, but as they say, your actions will speak much louder than the words. Even though they may claim to care, the actions, what we have seen in the last couple of months since the conflict escalated, does not actually support or bear out any indication of people who truly care about what is happening in the Middle East or in the world. Because, Israel will not go this far. Of course, what happened on October 7th, was totally reprehensible. The killing of young folks and children and all of that was, by Hamas, reprehensible. But Israel will not come this far. Over 32,000 Palestinians, over 32,000 have been killed. And that's not counting those that are under the rubble. Israel will not come this far if America had taken a more principled stand in what's going on. But it's not just the US alone, as you would see, as I also mentioned in the column, when Iran, what was obviously going to look like an escalation of the conflict beyond the Middle East, when Iran retaliated the attack on its embassy in Syria. You would find that neither the US nor Britain nor France condemned the act, which, if the shoe was on the other foot, they would not have accepted. So it is not a matter of whether the US or its allies, especially France and Britain care or not, but their actions, obviously, since the conflict started, has not suggested that they care at all, whatever else they may say to the contrary.
Okay, so in light of all of this, we know that there's chaos in those countries. And sadly, this chaos will begin to spread. People will begin to talk about it. The whole world is watching. Now, what do you think the US and other superpowers could have done to prevent this or at least end this?
Well, some countries have taken steps because before now, steps have been taken by some countries who felt very concerned to see how the conflict does not escalate. And I remember that South Africa, for example, went to the International Court of Justice. Of course, America is a non-signatory, party to that to ICJ. But it's an institution that much of the world subscribes to, and if two wrongs don't make a right, you don't add a third. So the South Africa went there to say, look, what is happening is verging on genocide, and Israel, Netanyahu's government needs to just stop. And of course, the issues, Israel was there to defend itself. Israel was present to defend itself. And at the end of the day, the decision of the ICJ was that what was happening was verging on genocide and that Israel needed to stop. But nothing happened. All right. And as I also said in the column, in the last 1 or 2 weeks, there have been voices on campuses across the US, from Yale to Columbia to New York University to University of Austin at Texas at Austin. By students, hundreds of students. Of course, there have also been demonstrations in support of pro-Israeli demonstrations. But there have been demonstrations that the US needs to stop what is happening because it just doesn't make sense. In today's world, you don't kill that scale of killing is just not defensible at all. All right, and Netanyahu's government has done this continuously because it says it's chasing the last Hamas, and that until the last Hamas is crushed, it will not pull back. But it is also creating more Hamas members, more Hamas recruits for the future.
Yeah.
So it becomes a cycle of.
So when will it ever?
So it becomes a cycle of violence that will never stop. And I don't know where else. That population in Palestine is expected to go or Gaza is expected to go if this ground offensive in Rafah continues.
And finally, from me, your reference to the military-industrial complex. Israel itself is a military-industrial complex, and so are the superpowers. And conspiracy theories will say they are behind all the crises in the world, especially in Africa, and even the trouble of insecurity in Nigeria. So this casts my mind back to one of your columns sometime in March, where you asked whether we were in the verge of a third world war. Now, with these superpowers interested in conflict because it enables them to sell arms, are we actually approaching a third world war?
Well, I hope not, but the signs are very disturbing. The signs are very, very, very disturbing. If the US and the UK did not scramble its military assets in defense of Israel when Iran launched a retaliatory attack, only God knows what might have happened. But our hope and prayer is that reason and better judgment will prevail, because already, although it is said that this is the last, this century has probably been the most peaceful for centuries past in terms of human, but with what is happening in Yemen, what is happening in South Sudan, what is happening in the war between Ukraine and Russia, which has become a meat grinder, and on top of that, what is happening in Gaza, it just doesn't look good at all for the world. So my hope, and I'm sure that this hope is also shared by millions of people across the world, in the US and in many other countries of the world, and including in Israel, is that reason will prevail, and that Netanyahu will put a stop and an amicable solution. And this solution has been on the ground since 1947. The two countries, it's only a two-state solution. Israel cannot wish to exist and hope to wipe off the Palestinians in order to exist, and vice versa. It's only a two-state solution discussed around the table that I think will guarantee the sort of peace that most of the world desires for the Middle East.
Okay. That's all for me.
For more on this, visit azurishekwene.com, and also don't forget to visit azu.media for our very, very interesting work on writing for the media and monetizing it. Thank you for coming on the show, Azu.
Thanks for having me, Julius.
Thank you for hosting Azu.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Conversations with Azu Ishekwene.